I don't know when exactly I became my family's problem solver. Maybe it started when I was a kid, and my mom realized I was more responsible than my older brother. Or maybe it was when my dad left, and I was the only one who held things together. Either way, at some point, I became the dependable one. The one everyone called when they needed something. Money, advice, a ride to the airport, a place to stay. But never just to talk. Never just to see how I was doing. It took me years to realize I was being used. Take my brother Eric, for example. He's 35, unemployed for the last 3 years, and somehow always has money for beer but never for rent. Every few months, I'd get a call from him, always with the same tone. Mandy, I hate to do this, but I'm in a tough spot. Tough spot always meant he was about to be evicted, his car was about to be repossessed, or he owed money to some guy who wasn't playing around. And like an idiot, I'd send him money. Because if I didn't, he'd guilt trip me. I'm your brother. Family's supposed to help family. And I'd cave every damn time. Then there's my mom. My sweet, helpless mother, who somehow managed to manipulate me without ever raising her voice. She's in her late 50s but acts like she's 80. Anytime something went wrong in her life, I was the one who had to fix it. The sink was leaking? Amanda, you need to call a plumber for me. Her car broke down? I don't know anything about mechanics, sweetheart. Can you figure it out? And when I asked why she couldn't handle these things herself, she'd sigh and say, I just don't have anyone else to rely on. As if I wasn't her daughter, but some live-in caretaker she never paid. The worst part? For the longest time, I accepted it. I let them treat me like a personal ATM, therapist, and handyman all rolled into one. But everything changed the night of my birthday. I turned 30 last month. I never made a big deal out of birthdays, but I thought, for once, maybe my family would do something for me. I didn't expect a party or expensive gifts, just a dinner, a card, maybe a simple happy birthday call. Something to show they cared. I got nothing. The entire day passed, and not one of them reached out. No texts. No calls. Just silence. It wasn't until 11:45 p.m., 15 minutes before my birthday ended, that my phone rang. It was my mom. For a second, I felt relieved. Maybe she'd just forgotten, got busy something. But when I answered, she went straight into her usual routine. Amanda, sweetheart, I need a favor. No happy birthday. No acknowledgement of the date. Just another problem for me to solve. I didn't even respond. I just hung up. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of texts. Mom, did you hang up on me? That was so rude, Amanda. Eric, Mom said you freaked out on her? What's your problem? Aunt Lisa, Amanda, your mother was very upset last night. You need to apologize. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one of them realized why I was upset. They only cared about how I made them feel. That's when it hit me. I wasn't family to them. I was a tool. A resource. And I was done being used. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I cut them off. I didn't make a dramatic announcement. I didn't tell them I was going no contact. I just stopped responding. When Eric called asking for money, I let it go to voicemail. When my mom sent me a guilt trip text about how family should be there for each other, I didn't reply. At first, they didn't take it seriously. Mom tried calling multiple times a day. Then she started messaging me through Facebook. Then she had Aunt Lisa reach out, then my cousin Matt, then even one of my mom's church friends I hadn't spoken to in years. The messages were all variations of the same thing. You're being selfish. Family doesn't turn their back on each other. After everything your mother has done for you, this is how you repay her? I wanted to scream. Everything she's done for me? What about everything I've done for them? After a week of ignoring them, the messages changed. Mom tried playing the victim. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but I hope one day you'll forgive me. Eric got angry. Wow, real nice, Mandy. Guess you don't give a damn about anyone but yourself. Aunt Lisa tried reasoning with me. I don't think you understand how much you're hurting your mother. But I stayed strong. And then, something unexpected happened. They stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped trying. At first, it felt weird. Like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. But as days turned into weeks, a strange thing happened. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying everyone else's burdens. I wasn't stressing over how to fix problems that weren't mine to fix. My paycheck lasted longer. My anxiety faded. I started focusing on myself, my own happiness, my own needs. I thought cutting them off would be painful, that I'd feel guilty. But I don't. Because for the first time in 30 years, I'm finally living for me. I used to believe that, despite everything, my family would have my back when it really mattered. I told myself that, yes, they took advantage of me, but if I ever truly needed them, they would be there. That illusion shattered the moment I asked for help. It started with something simple. A month after I stopped responding to their endless requests, my car broke down on my way home from work. It wasn't a major issue, but I was stranded on the side of the road in the middle of the night. I called my mom first, thinking maybe, just maybe she'd pick up. She didn't answer. Then I called my brother, Nick. Nick was the kind of guy who always expected me to bail him out but conveniently disappeared whenever I needed anything. Still, I gave him a chance. The phone rang 3 times before he picked up. What's up? He asked, sounding half asleep. I need a favor, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My car broke down, and I need a ride home. Silence. Then a sigh. Damn, Mandy, it's kinda late. I clenched my jaw. I know. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. Can't you call a tow truck? I exhaled sharply. Nick, I just need a ride. It's a 20-minute drive. He hesitated. Then, with zero shame, he said, Look, I would, but I'm exhausted. I had a long day. Maybe try Uber. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. Right, I said, my voice cold. Got it. And I hung up. It wasn't just the fact that he refused. It was the way he did it, so casually, like my problem was just an inconvenience to him. I ended up calling roadside assistance and paying out of pocket for a tow. As I sat in the truck on my way home, a bitter realization hit me. I had spent years bending over backward for these people, and the first time I needed something, they couldn't be bothered. I wish I could say that was the final straw. But I still wasn't ready to fully accept the truth. That came 2 weeks later when Nick called me for a favor. I should have ignored him, but curiosity got the better of me. Mandy. Hey. He was chipper, friendly, acting like the last conversation never happened. What do you want, Nick? Damn, can't I just call to check in? No. He laughed like I was joking. Alright, fine. I need your help with something. It's kinda important. I said nothing. Just waited. So, you know how I've been working at that car dealership? I did. He'd been bragging about it for months, acting like he was some big-shot salesman when, in reality, he barely scraped by on commission. Well, he continued, there's this bonus thing happening. If I can sell one more car this month, I get a massive payout. Like, huge. But I'm short and time's running out. I already knew where this was going. I need you to come in and buy a car, he said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. I almost laughed at the audacity. You want me to buy a car? It wouldn't have to be a crazy expensive one, he rushed to add. Just something to push me over the quota. And, I mean, you were talking about replacing yours soon, right? I was speechless. Nick, I said slowly, do you remember 2 weeks ago? When my car broke down and I called you for help. Silence. You told me you were too tired. Couldn't even be bothered to drive 20 minutes to pick me up. And now you want me to drop thousands of dollars so you can get a bonus. More silence. Then, as if he still didn't get it, he sighed and said, So, is that a no? I felt something inside me snap. You are unbelievable, I spat. You didn't even apologize. You didn't even pretend to feel bad about leaving me stranded. But when you need something, I'm supposed to open my wallet without question. Jesus, Mandy, it's not that deep. I could have screamed. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, I'm done. Done with what? With you. With all of this. With being the only one in this family who actually gives a damn. Oh, come on, he scoffed. You're overreacting. I was done explaining. I hung up. Blocked his number. Then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked my mother too. And Aunt Lisa. And every other relative who had ever used me. I expected to feel guilty. I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I saw the truth clearly. My family didn't support me. I was nothing more than a resource to them. And I refused to let them take one more thing from me. I should have known better than to expect understanding. But for some reason, I thought if I laid it all out, if I finally told them how I felt, something would change. That maybe, just maybe, they would realize how much they had been taking me for granted. So one evening, after staring at my phone for almost an hour, I finally did it. I opened the family group chat and started typing. Amanda, I need to say something. For years, I've always been there for you guys. Whenever you needed help, whenever there was a problem, whenever money was short. But every time I needed something, I was ignored or brushed off. I feel used. I feel like I'm only valuable to this family when I'm fixing things for you. And I can't keep doing this. I want the same support I've given all of you. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed send. At first, nothing. Just the little scene checkmarks popping up. My heart pounded. Then, one by one, the responses started rolling in. Mom, what are you talking about, sweetheart? We're family. Of course we love you. Zach, oh, here we go. Another dramatic meltdown. Nick, geez, Mandy, you sound like a martyr. Nobody forced you to do anything. My hands clenched around my phone. Amanda, Nick, are you serious? You literally asked me to buy a car for you after refusing to help me when I was stranded. No response from him, but Zach jumped in. Zach, you think you're the only one with problems? We all have our struggles. Maybe instead of playing the victim, you should be grateful that you can help. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Amanda, grateful? For what? Being the family's personal bank and problem solver? When have any of you helped me? Silence for a few minutes. Then, finally my mother replied. Mom, Amanda, that's not fair. I've always been here for you. I raised you, didn't I? I put food on the table. I worked so hard to give you a good life. And now you're acting like I'm some monster. I felt a wave of frustration and exhaustion crash over me. I had been expecting denial, but this was guilt-tripping at its finest. Amanda, Mom, I'm not talking about when I was a child. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about all the times I've dropped everything for this family while getting nothing in return. Mom, you're being ungrateful, Amanda. That's when my father, who had been silent up until now, finally typed something. Dad. That was it. 3 little dots. As if he had started to write something and then changed his mind. My father had always been like this. Passive. Detached. Present but never really involved. I wasn't sure why I had expected anything different now. Nick, look, if you don't want to help us anymore, fine. But don't act like we're the villains here. Zach, yeah. You're making it sound like we're horrible people when all we ever did was rely on family. That's what families do. I wanted to scream. Amanda, no, what families do is support each other. Not just take until there's nothing left. Mom, I don't know where all this anger is coming from, Amanda, but I don't appreciate it. And that was it. No accountability. No self-reflection. Just dismissal. I sat there, staring at my phone, waiting for anyone, to say something different. But the chat went quiet. Finally, I made my decision. Without another word, I left the group. The silence was expected. After I left the family group chat, they didn't reach out. No angry phone calls. No guilt-tripping texts. Just radio silence. At first, I thought maybe they were stewing, waiting for me to come crawling back. But then I realized the truth. They were ignoring me. It was a tactic. A game. They thought if they cut me off, if they made me feel abandoned, I would break. That I would come running back, desperate for their validation, eager to slip back into my old role. But they underestimated me. For the first time in my life, I was free. And I wasn't going to waste it. The first thing I did was take a hard look at my finances. I had always known I spent too much on my family, but I had never forced myself to really see it. Now, with no one asking for handouts, I went through my bank statements. And what I found made me sick. Over the past year alone, I had given my family over $5,000. $5,000. That was rent money. That was vacation money. That was a savings account. And I had just given it away. Covering Nick's overdue bills, paying for Mom's emergencies, covering Zach's bad financial decisions. Not to mention the hundreds I had spent on family holidays, buying gifts, paying for dinners, making sure everyone else had a good time while I barely scraped by. And for what? I vowed never to let it happen again. The next change was my mental health. Without the constant stress of being my family's unpaid crisis manager, I started breathing again. I wasn't waking up to frantic texts about someone's money problems. My phone wasn't a source of dread. Instead, I focused on myself. I started going to the gym, something I had put off for years. I signed up for a ceramics class, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I reconnected with friends I had unintentionally neglected because my family had drained every ounce of my energy. One of those friends was Rachel. We had been close in college, but over the years, I had slowly pulled away, not because I didn't care about her, but because every time she invited me out, I was too busy. Which really meant I'm too exhausted from dealing with my family's messes. When I finally texted her, she responded immediately. Rachel, Mandy, OMG, where have you been? I thought you moved to another country or something. I laughed. Amanda, not quite. Just dealing with family stuff. Rachel, yikes. Well, we need to catch up. Drinks this weekend. And just like that, I started getting my life back. While I was thriving, my family was waiting. The first test came a month after the fallout. It was Zach's birthday, and in previous years, I had always been the one organizing everything. Booking the restaurant, buying the cake, making sure Mom didn't forget to pitch in for a gift. This year, I did nothing. And guess what? No one else stepped up. The day of his birthday, I checked Facebook and saw a single post from Nick. Nick, happy birthday, bro. Hope it's a good one. That was it. No big dinner. No family gathering. Just an afterthought of a birthday message. And I knew. They had been waiting for me to fix it. I smiled and went on with my day. Thanksgiving was next. For years, I had hosted. Not because I wanted to, but because no one else would. Mom always claimed it was too much work, and Zach and Nick never even offered. So, like an idiot, I had always taken it on. Spending hundreds on groceries, cooking for hours, making sure everything was perfect. This year, I made other plans. Rachel was hosting a Friendsgiving, and when she invited me, I accepted without hesitation. I didn't check in with my family. Didn't ask if they had made plans. Didn't offer to help. And sure enough, the night before Thanksgiving, my phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then Zach called. Then Nick. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to a long, guilt-ridden text from Mom. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, Amanda. You've completely abandoned your family. We were waiting for you to tell us what was happening for Thanksgiving, and now we have nothing planned. Your brothers are disappointed, and I'm just heartbroken that you don't care anymore. I read the message. Then deleted it. They had months to plan something. They had years to step up. But they never did, because they always assumed I would do it for them. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't just setting boundaries. I was teaching them consequences. And I had no intention of going back. After I left the family group chat, what followed was what I could only describe as intentional silence. At first, I thought it was temporary. That someone, Mom, Nick, Zach, would eventually break and try to reach out. But days turned into weeks, and then months. No one called. No one texted. They had decided to play the waiting game, hoping I would be the first to give in. In the past, that kind of silence would have sent me into a panic. I would have drowned in guilt, Second-guessed myself, wondered if maybe I had overreacted. But this time it was different. I was free. For the first time in years, I had money to spend on myself. No sudden request to cover someone else's debt, no unexpected holiday expenses that always ended up on my shoulders. I did the math and realized that every year, I had been spending over $5,000 on my family, on their bills, repairs, tickets, gifts. Now that money stayed with me. I replaced my car, not because someone pressured me into it, but because I wanted to. I finally signed up for the painting classes I had been dreaming about for years. I started working out, not because anyone expected me to, but because I loved feeling strong. And most importantly, I stopped being afraid of phone calls. Before, every incoming call made me tense up because I knew that if it was Mom or Nick, it meant another request, another problem that I was supposed to fix. But now that they were ignoring me, that fear disappeared. For the first time, I was living for me. One day, about 6 months after I left, my mother reappeared. I saw her name on my phone screen, and before answering, I took a few deep breaths. "Hello, Mom." "Oh, so you still pick up the phone," she said with a tight smile in her voice. "I was starting to think you forgot about your family." I had expected something like this. "I haven't forgotten about anyone," I replied calmly. "Well, you sure acted like you did," she sighed. "Listen, I don't want to fight. I miss you, Amanda." I softened a little, but I didn't let myself get pulled back in. "I miss you too." "Then maybe let's just forget about all this?" she asked with forced cheerfulness. I felt something tighten inside me. There it was. She didn't want to talk about what had happened. She didn't want to acknowledge the problem. She just wanted me to step back into my old role as if nothing had changed. "Mom, I can't just forget," I said. "But why hold a grudge? I'm your mother." "It's not about holding a grudge," I replied. "It's about the fact that I finally set boundaries, and you don't even want to acknowledge them." She fell silent. "I just want things to go back to the way they were," she finally said. "And I don't," I answered honestly. For the first time, I said it out loud. I didn't want to go back. I wasn't the same Amanda who dropped everything for everyone except herself. "So what does that mean?" Her voice trembled. "It means I won't let myself be used anymore." "You're so selfish," she suddenly hissed. I didn't even get angry. I just smiled sadly. "I love you, Mom," I said softly. "But I'm not going to live for anyone but myself anymore." And I hung up.